I am going to be showing you the current best stats for each amulet, so make sure to watch till the end to not miss out on anything or you will make 0 honey per boost, like literally. And I am going to speak on, mid-game, so before SSA, like gold star amulet, and also for each hive collar too. And now firstly, all I'm going to say for mid-game is that it doesn't really matter crazy what you get from the gold star amulet or anything under it, like the silver star, stuff like that. Just really making sure you have pollen though. But I mean overall it's just mostly going for SSA as that's where it matters, and the other amulets really are mostly obtainable at a later stage in the game, like the supreme version, which matters the most. So for the first hive collar, I'm going to go over the blue hive and start with supreme star amulet. The stats you want for this are blue pollen, convert rate, bee ability rate, pollen and critical chance. Then on your stick bug amulet, you want to have 300k capacity, which is guaranteed, 1.25x convert rate, which is guaranteed as well, bee attack, blue pollen, and blue bomb pollen. And that would be a perfect stick bug amulet, by the way. But if you are trying and struggling to get that, but you do get pollen instead of blue pollen and bomb pollen instead of blue pollen, then you can keep it until you do get the blue pollen and the blue bomb pollen, because that is a must to have on your amulet. Now the supreme shell amulet, and really you want to make sure you got convert amount on it and pollen, then you're really good. Yeah. And now what you want to have on your supreme ant amulet, the critical chance, critical power, pollen and blue pollen, and then may as well get white pollen since there is quite some white pollen on blue fields usually. For the king beetle amulet, you really want to go for as high as of a convert rate as possible, and then get bee attack, blue flower pollen and bamboo pollen. Now the moon amulet, and that is really just making sure you got bond from treats and maximum honey per pollen, and I think that is either 7% or 8% that is max. Now lastly for blue hive, being the supreme cog amulet, and you want to get bee attack percentage or blue bee attack first, blue pollen, bubble pollen, token ability lifespan, and blue instant conversion. But okay, now let's go over for the red hive amulets. So for the supreme star amulet, you want to get obviously red pollen, instant conversion, critical chance, bee ability rate and pollen, and maybe even pollen from bees instead of bee ability rate if you have maxed out your white drives. Now for the supreme stick bug amulet, bee attack, red pollen and bee attack percentage, by the way. And if you are struggling to get the red pollen, you can always get pollen as an alternative, but red pollen and bee attack percentage really just the best one you can get. Supreme shell amulet is goo conversion and pollen, or instead of pollen you can also get convert amount, but pollen would be better. Next is the supreme ant amulet, and for this you want to get critical chance, critical power, bee attack and red pollen and white pollen as well. King beetle is really just bee attack, strawberry pollen, mushroom pollen, that's it. Yeah. The moon amulet is bond from treats and honey per pollen again. Now for the supreme cog amulet, you want to first get either bee attack percentage or red bee attack. Next you want to either get red pollen or pollen, then event bee ability pollen or pollen from bees, or even market ability pollen, then super crit power, then red instant conversion. But obviously if you get the first ones I listed there would be better, but you can even get the second or the third one I listed if you're not getting that lucky, which usually happens because usually luck isn't on my side and it probably isn't really on your side most of the time too, although you never know, you could get lucky. And now for the white hive amulets. So for the supreme star amulet, you want to get white pollen, bee ability rate, pollen, critical chance and pollen from bees. Now yes, I do actually have a 5 out of 5 SSA myself, quite proud of that, not gonna lie. Now for the stick bug amulet, you want to get bee attack or monster respawn time, but I think bee attack would be way better. better though. But if you do get monster respawn time, still can keep it. Red bee attack, white pollen or normal pollen as well if you get unlucky. Then honey from tokens lastly. But once again, everything I mentioned first is what you want to get mostly, and the second and third stuff is if you do get unlucky and can't get that one exactly. Then the next one is the Supreme Shell Amulet, and this is the goo conversion, honey from tokens or white pollen, spider pollen and pineapple pollen. Then for the Supreme Ant Amulet, critical chance, critical power, player move speed, pollen or bee attack. That was for the third one, by the way. And then the fourth one for that is the white pollen. Next, for the king beetle, you really just want to go for bee attack. That's literally it. If you get bee attack, you're good. Moon amulet being white pollen, or you can get 3 different ones for the third one, and that is the pollen from bees or pineapple patch pollen. Now for the last amulet overall is the Supreme Cog Amulet, and this is bee attack percent or colorless bee attack. Then the white pollen or pollen, mark ability pollen, honey from tokens, and white instant conversion. But yeah, once again, if you guys didn't hear before, everything I mentioned first is actually what you want to go for, but the second and third things I mentioned are kind of, you know, alternatives if you don't get the first thing I said. But if you guys still do need help and still don't understand or anything, let me know in the comments, as I will help you out. And make sure to also check out some of the other guides I've actually made. But yeah, thank you so much to Lcfiredog for actually helping out. Massive thank you to him. And yeah, for now, thank you so much for watching, and bye.